My name is Ava, and for most of my childhood, it was just me and my father. After my mother passed away, he did everything he could to keep our home filled with warmth. He worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, just to make sure I had what I needed. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. Then one day, when I was 15, he met a woman named Claire. She was elegant, smooth-talking, stunning. The kind of woman who walked into a room and acted like it already belonged to her. My father fell in love immediately, and before I even had time to understand what was happening, she was in our house, rearranging everything. At first, she pretended to be kind. She'd bake cookies, buy me small gifts, smile sweetly when my father was watching. But when it was just us, her entire demeanor would shift. I became something she needed to manage, correct, and eventually erase. She didn't like how I laughed too loudly, how my hair frizzed in humidity, how my clothes were simple, how I lived. She convinced my father that I needed structure, discipline, and polish. And he believed her because he loved her. I watched the father who once defended every piece of me slowly bend to her demands. The real betrayal happened on my 17th birthday. I had been planning to go to college and study architecture. My father had been saving since I was 9. But that evening, Claire casually mentioned that the savings had been used to remodel the kitchen. My father stared at the floor, while I realized the future I had imagined had just been stolen from me. Claire looked satisfied, as though she had successfully removed the last part of my mother's presence from the home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply walked to my bedroom, packed a bag, and left with nothing but a notebook and 3 pairs of clothes. That night, I made myself a promise. I would never rely on anyone again. And one day, I would make them regret ever trying to break me. I worked my way through community college, waitressing, cleaning offices, tutoring students to make ends meet. I barely had time to sleep, but pain can be a powerful fuel when you don't let it destroy you. I earned scholarships, transferred to a university, completed my degree, and eventually secured a job at a respected architectural firm. Over the years, I climbed and climbed. I designed buildings that made headlines, buildings that changed city skylines. I became one of the youngest senior architects in my firm, and later, one of the youngest partners. I built myself piece by piece with no one's help. Then one afternoon, years later, I got a call. My father had suffered a stroke. I traveled back home immediately. Claire greeted me with irritation rather than concern. The house was falling apart, bills piled up, and she was already packing to leave. She announced that my father's medical issues were my responsibility now, because she deserved a life too. I looked at my father, weak, fragile, struggling to speak, and I simply told her to go. She didn't hesitate. She left the man who loved her the moment he wasn't useful. For 2 years, I cared for my father. We worked through speech therapy, physical therapy, and endless doctor visits. Slowly he came back, not entirely, but enough to speak, enough to understand. One day he apologized for not protecting me. I told him he would now. Together, we collected every document, every bank record, every fraudulent transfer Claire had done while my father was vulnerable. She forged signatures, opened credit cards, and drained funds. It wasn't just betrayal, it was crime. But I didn't go after her immediately. I waited, and while I waited, I built something bigger. A project so groundbreaking it attracted major investors. And when I looked through those investment portfolios, I found her. Claire had started a real estate firm and was struggling to stay afloat. She desperately needed new investors, so I scheduled a meeting. She didn't recognize my name on the proposal. When I walked into her office, wearing a suit that cost more than her car, I watched fear crawl across her face. She tried to smile. I didn't. I presented my project. She agreed to partner. She signed the initial documents, eager to secure funding. Then, at the final signing meeting, my lawyer placed a second set of documents in front of her. Evidence of her fraud. Identity theft, forged signatures, tax evasion. Her face went pale. She begged. She cried. Her voice cracked as she tried to explain. But explanations don't erase scars. I didn't want her in prison. Prison is too quick, too forgettable. I wanted her to live with the consequences. So she signed everything over, her business, her assets, her property, all to repay the debt she created. She had to sell her home, her jewelry, everything she once used to feel superior. Today, my father and I live in a peaceful house with a small garden. We eat dinner together at a table by the window. We laugh again. We breathe again. And Claire? She works the front desk of a motel 2 towns away. No one knows who she used to be. No one looks up to her. No one fears her. She tried to erase me. But in the end, I erased the version of her she built on lies. Because revenge isn't anger. It's justice. And justice, when patient, always returns home.